Well, Bassam, thank you so much for helping my project. Could we start off with you saying a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm a lifelong space enthusiast and have been always fascinated with the moon. I'm from Kuwait, and since Kuwait does not have a space program, I decided to set up my own space program with a self-funded startup company called Orbital Space. So this is who I am. I'm very excited about what you're doing, and I wanted to support it.
Now, you said you're a lifelong space enthusiast. Do you remember what got you interested at the very beginning?
Curiosity, I think since I was a kid, when looking at the stars and the moon, I was just, curious about it. I wanted to explore space and what's out there. So I would say curiosity, and the fire got ignited. As long as I remember, I think maybe since I was 7 or 8, and since then it has been the driving force for everything I do.
Um, what was the night sky like in Kuwait whenever you were a child?
So it's a typical night sky. I mean, we do have light pollution, so I try to find, areas where there's minimal light pollution to be able to see as much as possible. And I would be like spending hours just staring at the skies, just getting into the roof of the house, and then just lay down and then watch the skies.
And at that time, did you have like some training or education to make sense of what you saw, or were you just kind of exploring it with sort of a free and curious and open mind? Like, what were you thinking when you were looking at the stars?
So it was mostly I wanted to learn more. Unfortunately, we didn't have much resources related to this area, to space or space technology, just because Kuwait does not have interest in that subject. However, I tried to teach myself through reading books and whatever resources available to me, to learn as much as possible. And I set it as a goal to myself since I was a kid that I need to excel in school so I can have good grades to earn a scholarship, because in Kuwait they do provide scholarship abroad for high achiever students. So I set that goal to myself that I'm going to excel in school and get a scholarship to go to the US and study where NASA is. And that's exactly what happened. So right after high school, I applied for a scholarship to go to the US. And I went to the US, and then, being just an 18 years old, have no idea about the higher education system in the US and how it works and how it's structured. I figured the best university I should go to would be the one closest to where they launch the space shuttle. So I decided to, look through the map and figure out what is the closest university, and it was Florida Tech, and this is where I went. I went to school over there, and over the 4 years I spent there for my undergrad. It was like in the mid 90s to early 2000, and it was the time where NASA was very active in basically building the International Space Station. So there were like launches almost every month, and I never missed a launch when I was there.
That's amazing. I unfortunately I never ever made it to see a shuttle launch, and that's sort of one of my regrets. Actually, I haven't actually seen a single launch in person. I tried to watch the what was it, the demo 2 launch, but
Yeah,
it got delayed because of weather, and I had to come back. But
yeah. It's amazing experience. It's just I cannot describe it. It's just the sound, the shock wave, the sea in itself is just amazing. And it's equally exciting whether it's a day launch or evening launch. It's just each one have its own character, but they're both like amazing.
That's that. I I remember seeing some photos that a friend of mine had taken from a launch, and the thing that happens, it was a day launch, but as he took the photos, the background became darker and darker because the brightness of the rocket was
Okay, yeah,
so much that
yeah,
it had to do quicker photos.
yeah. And with the space shuttle night launches, it is just light up the whole sky. I mean, it's just the amount of thrust that gets out of it, like during the initial, like I would say the first minute, it's just amazing. And it's just, it becomes, the whole sky becomes bright. It's just amazing experience.
But going back to when you were a boy in Kuwait, looking
Yeah.
at the stars and dreaming of that, um, did you have some other friends that had similar thoughts, or were you kind of unique like this?
I was unique. You know, even among my siblings, I have three boy siblings and one girl sibling, and they were not that kind of curious kids. So I was the only one who was interested in that. Um, but yeah, in general, in Arabic culture, the moon is actually a symbol of beauty, and even if you go historically, if you go into the historic Arabic literature, there's a lot of poem and poetry and stories describing how beautiful the moon is. So it's been people have been fascinated about the moon, and I mean even it's a female name in Arabic culture, so they call someone Moon.
Oh, so how do you say moon in Arabic?
Qamar,
Amr?
Qamar. It's like Qamr.
Q,
Qamar, Qamar,
Kamar, Kamar.
Qamar. Yeah, Qamar.
Pr
Yes, Qamar.
Pronunciation is not my strong suit. Um, so I mean, did your parents or and teachers help to nurture your interest, or did you find some barriers or people trying to say, oh, well, it's nice that you're interested in that, but the real place that you need to be focused? I mean, like, what was your experience?
So yeah, my parents did support my curiosity, so they would buy me books and some science magazines to read and satisfy my thirst for knowledge. So yeah, they did support me. In school, there were some information in curriculum about space and astronomy, but they were very limited, not so much. But most of the research I've done was on my own, like going to the library or trying to read as much as possible about it and learning on my own about space.
And so you somehow managed to keep your interest, because a lot of
Yeah.
people had interest as children, and then something happens along the way and they go into accounting or something.
Yeah.
Um, but you managed to keep your interest, and now you've gone back to Kuwait to try to develop that interest in the wider population. Um, can you talk about how that's going? Like how you're engaging people and how it's being received and what you see as being the challenges and opportunities and that type of thing?
So actually, in my case, it's the other way around. It's actually my passion for space have been driving my interest in science and technology. So it was the love for space and going to space that made me learn more about it and um, trying everything I could to pursue my country to establish a space program. And I have tried for many years, talking to different officials, trying to convince them on the importance of space, going into public talks and trying to um, increase awareness about the importance of space. That didn't take me anywhere. So I said, well, I have to do it myself. And this is where I set up my own startup company. And so far we've been doing very well. Last December, we actually sent the first science experiment from Kuwait to space, to the International Space Station. And that science experiment was done by high school students. So it was a team of high school students who worked on this experiment, and we sent it to the ISS, where one of NASA astronauts actually conducted the experiment on behalf of the students. And Kuwait, the experiment stayed in the ISS for 40 days, and then it was returned back to Earth and back to Kuwait. And now we're getting ready to actually launch the first satellite from Kuwait. And guess what the name is? It's called Kumar al-Kuwait. So it's Moon of Kuwait.
Oh, wow.
So that's the name of the satellite. It's a nano satellite. It's a CubeSat. But the idea behind it is to make it open access to all students from around the world. So basically, once it's in orbit and passing over all countries, students can upload code on their own and execute it in real time on board that satellite and receive the signal back.
It's like a little processor in the sky type of thing.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So they can develop flight software. They can develop some code to collect the measurements from the onboard sensors, and then get the data back. They can do some simple controls. I mean, the satellite does not have thrusters, but they have some actuators, actually electromagnetic actuators, where it can align with the Earth magnetic field. So you can have some minor ways of controlling the spinning of that satellite. So yeah, it's going to be once it's in orbit, it's going to be open access to everybody. They can submit a proposal to upload their code, and if it's approved, then it will be uploaded and executed, and then they can get the results back.
Will it have any like gyroscopes to help control the orientation as well?
So it has they call them Magnetworkers, and they can align with the Earth magnetic field to kind of stabilize it. And then you can turn them on and off. So this is where you can make it spin or stabilize. So very simple things. It's not anything sophisticated, but at least it's something to be like a platform for students to experiment, learn about satellite technology, and maybe even test new code. And then they can say we have tested with a real satellite in space, actually in space. So yeah, that's our upcoming project. Also, since I heard about NASA Artemis program, it got me really excited. So I have actually decided that we should also have a mission to the moon. So I have assembled a team, and we are currently brainstorming ideas for moon mission, and we're trying to figure out how to hitchhike a ride to the moon. We will not be able to afford to have a dedicated mission, but I think we can figure out a way to maybe hitchhike with someone going to the moon, whether maybe it's one of the Artemis flights or others. We'll see.
Yeah, you have those commercial lunar payload services program participants.
Yeah.
So Astrobotic and Intuitive Machines are sending a lander this year, and I think both of them are set up to give people a ride.
Yeah. So hopefully we're targeting 2023. We'll see if we can get something during that time, because we're still at very early stages. We haven't decided on the mission concept yet, but hopefully in the next few months we'll be able to figure out something.
Now, you mentioned that a lot of people in Kuwait are not interested in space exploration, or you know, don't share sort of your passion. And I was wondering if you had any insights into why that might be. Is it because of, you know, there's a feeling that there's really not a place for Kuwait, or that
It's
Kuwaitis are
it's
interested in other things, or what is it?
I think it's mostly mindset, and this is what one of the things I'm trying to change and increase awareness about. I think many people in Kuwait, they still have that mindset that space is limited to few countries, and it's very difficult, it's very expensive, and they're not aware of new space. That now space is very accessible. Now there are lots of private companies. You know, you don't have to have a military space program to be able to go to space. So I think that's the main barrier. Actually, you would see some interest and engagement from younger kids, but as you said, by the time they get to teenage years, that interest disappears. And I think the reason is because there's nothing to nurture that and keep it going. So usually by then they will just get into something different.
As you know, you have parents and counselors and other people that are kind of directing people into fields and professions that they're familiar with and that they feel like are um, you know, stable, or that would
Yeah,
have a long life. And I have this North Houston Space Society chapter that we have regular meetings, and I keep thinking about what kind of impact we might be able to have. And I feel like that one of the areas that we could work is in trying to educate parents and teachers that,
yeah,
you know, space is the new gold rush. You know, it's
yes, yeah,
these are real professions that will
yeah,
be
yeah.
around. It's not just a few select people.
And it's not as difficult as it used to be. And this is what I'm trying to prove. You know, by sending an experiment by high school students, and this was done by a self-funded startup. Just this is a clear evidence to everybody that it's not that difficult. You know, high schoolers with just working with a small startup managed to send an experiment to space, and now we're getting ready to send a satellite to space. So this is what I'm trying to do, is trying to showcase that it's not that difficult.
And you know, New Zealand is kind of a surprise in the whole space thing. I mean,
Yeah,
Rocket Labs felt like it came out of nowhere. You know, with
yeah,
Peter Beck and you know, able to launch satellites into orbit. Like this the only private company outside of the U.S. at the time when they got started to actually be able to launch things in orbit. And almost feel like if New Zealand can do it, you know, pretty much just,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of countries between the size of New Zealand and the US,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
did
yeah.
that change
And in
anything in
Kuwait,
Kuwait?
and I'm sorry, and in Kuwait, we're not lacking resources. I mean, we are an oil-rich country, so financial resources are there. It's just the culture and mindset that they just think it's not that it's too difficult, or it's not something that it's very important. But I'm hoping to change that. I mean, that's my plan. Is with all the things that I'm doing, is I'm hoping that I'll be able to change that mindset, and hopefully they will realize the importance of this, and then they will start investing in this field.
But did you see any change in attitudes before and after Rocket Lab successfully made it to orbit? Like people looking at each other going, wow, look at New Zealand, where are we?
There is, I mean, there is some of that, and not only New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand is kind of far from Kuwait, but what's even closer is UAE, and UAE is just amazing what they have done. I mean, so far they have launched several satellites. They had an astronaut, and they went to Mars as well. And this just fascinated and shocked everybody in the region, that how they managed to do that in such short time. In like less than 10 years, they were able to do all that. So it was just amazing. And yes, it did grab a lot of attention in the region. And many countries in the region started their space programs. I think right now Kuwait is the only exception. all the neighboring countries have put building capabilities in space as a national priority. So I'm hoping Kuwait will get on board soon. So.
And when you think about the future of humanity, like say 500 years in the future, what does it look like to you?
So I think we'll be utilizing a lot of the space resources, and because in 500 years, I think we will just outgrow our own planet. We have to find other places. So yeah, I think we're probably gonna have living quarters floating in space in like near Earth orbit. Probably have also stations on the moon that people will be living there, and even up to Mars. I think we'll be having colonies as well. So yeah, I think we will have all that, and it depends on how advanced and how rich. Maybe some people can buy a space in Mars, and some people can buy some, if they don't have a lot of money, maybe moon. And for the ones who cannot afford the moon, they probably just can buy something like near Earth, just floating around Earth. It will be a much smaller space, but hey, it's better than nothing.
And you talk about us outgrowing the Earth. Are you talking about in terms of population or something else?
Population. So yeah, I think it's just population and places to live. I think the quality of life also is increasing as time passing. So everybody wants to have a big house. Everybody wants to have a garden. Everybody wants to have all these what they call a dream house, right? So it's just we're not gonna have enough space on this planet for all that. So unless we go into like underwater, which is an option to live underwater, or to go to outer space. But I think outer space is easier than going underwater.
Well, I don't forget the on the water option, artificial islands.
Yeah. That's true. That's also actually in the making right now. I mean, in some countries they already have started some artificial islands, and having some like hotels underwater, things like that. So yeah, it is happening.
Well, I mean, I definitely see what you mean by people wanting to kind of expand their living area, but in terms of actual population growth, I think what we've seen in like Japan and in Europe and in the U.S. and Canada and Australia is the native populations actually in decline in terms of the population growth. And it seems to be that as countries get more developed, they produce less children. And so as the world becomes wealthier, I sometimes wonder if maybe we'll have the opposite problem of not actually, instead of having an expanding population, have a contracting one.
Oh, that's a very interesting point. I never thought of it from that angle. Yeah, that could be the case. That it might be declining in populations in some areas. But I think there's always going to be the case of conflicts and wars. I don't think this will be avoided. So, usually when countries get out of wars, they will start to rebuild their population, so they will be producing more. So I don't know. Maybe it will balance out at the end, and we will never outgrow our planet from population point of view. But I think still the quality of living will continue to increase with time, and there will be more demand for bigger spaces, even though the number of populations is not increasing.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos talks about his motivations for creating Blue Origin is to, he eventually sees us having these big, huge orbital facilities that are, kind of artificial worlds, and you can have them however you want to. You can adjust the amount of, perceived gravity that you're feeling, and you could
Mm,
have all sorts of
yeah.
different worlds. Do you think that's something that might be in our future?
Yes, I can see this happening in the future. I can't tell when, whether it's going to be in 10 years or 100 years, I don't know. But yeah, I can see this happening. And it's just, if you look historically, a lot of the science fiction, let's say 100 years ago, people thought this is impossible, and now we are witnessing some of the things that has been written before that will happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if such thing happen in the future.
Um, I feel that the 2020s might be to space exploration what the 1990s were to the internet and, um, to computing. I mean, you probably had an easier time in 1990 explaining to somebody orbital mechanics than online shopping or email, as an example. But by 2000, everybody had a sense of what those were pretty much. Right now in 2020, people still see space as being a niche activity. But I think over the next decade, we're going to see several events that will change that. I mean, just this year, we've had two private space missions, well, three private space missions already announced, right? We had the Axiom 1 mission with those four people paying to go to space. We had the Inspiration 4 mission, which has three everyday people going to space.
Yeah,
And then we have Dear Moon, which is
yeah,
recruiting 8 people to go around the moon.
yeah.
And then, of course, we have Space Heroes that's on the horizon. Um,
Correct.
but in addition to that, you have like the Commercial Lunar Payload Services Program landing, um, things on the moon twice a year. You have Artemis going around the moon, landing on the moon, sustained operations in 2028.
Yeah,
Um, but the real big, and then you have Blue Origin doing whatever it is they're doing behind the scenes. I hope it's great.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but then
Also
you,
building private space stations. Now there's a lot of talking about building a private space station by Axiom. China is also building a private, building a space station. So I think we're going to see a lot of people going to space in the near future.
but the big thing is, if we were to continue with the analogy of the uh, 2020s being to space what the 1990s were to the internet, then the Netscape browser would be the SpaceX Starship.
Yeah, that's true.
And Elon has a factory down there that's producing one of these a month, and he's talking about getting it to the point where they're producing two a week, each of which capable of doing 3 flights a day, cheaper than any other rocket ever launched before.
Yeah,
Um, Even if you do half of that, that's a game changer.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah. It's gonna reduce the cost of going to space significantly, which means there will be more people going to space. Whether it's from other nations or just private citizens wants to satisfy their dreams of floating in microgravity. Yeah, I can see this happening.
And what do you think about our plans to return to the moon in 2024? You said you were excited about Artemis.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, how would you get somebody excited about it who's not a space person? Like, what would you tell them?
So I would say that the moon is the closest celestial body that's yeah, close to Earth. It's a place that we've been seeing all our life in the sky. Looking at the sky, you see the moon, and to be actually stepping on the surface of that moon, it's going to be very fascinating. And imagine going there and looking back at our planet and just seeing that. And this is also something that stuck in my mind. From Apollo 17 mission, when they took a picture of Earth, it's like that blue marble. It's just an amazing picture of our planet, the full planet. And just seeing that from there, I think it's priceless. So having that opportunity to see our planet from there is just amazing. I think that's a very good reason to go to the moon.
Yeah, people often talk about what can we get from space that we don't have here, and the number one import that I hope we get is a better perspective.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Where
true.
we are in the
That's true.
universe and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah, yeah.
So if you could, would you go to space?
Oh yeah, definitely. I wouldn't hesitate. If you have a ticket for me, I'll go tomorrow.
You know, not everybody answers the question that way, and
Yeah.
some people say that they don't have an interest or they don't want to go. And you know what? One of the one reasons why they say they don't want to go?
Not sure.
Claustrophobia.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, which is kind
Yeah.
of funny because on one hand, you're like in the middle of nothing. On the other
Yeah.
hand, you're like scrunched up in this
Yes,
lovely
you are.
capsule.
Yeah. 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 That's true. That's true.
It's like being on a lovely boat in the middle of the Pacific.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I would definitely go if I'm given the opportunity to experience that.
Well, Bassam, I know we covered lots of ground, and I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't cover?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything that I wanted to say. That going to the moon is very important. I want to be part of that, and I'm already started to work out something. And I think in few years we'll be looking back at this and laughing about all these ideas, because maybe some of them are will be silly, because in once we get to the moon and have an outpost over there, and people start living there and start manufacturing things over there, then it's just going to be amazing. So thank you very much for what you're doing. I think this is really great, and I think as what you have planned, this is a time capsule, and I think in the future, whoever gonna see this or listen to this, I hope they will find it amusing and maybe learn something from it.
I share your hopes.
Yeah,
Well, you have a good rest of, I guess it's night there. It's like
yeah,
it's past
that's evening in Kuwait. Yeah,
it. Considering your love for the stars, now's a good time to go see them.
yeah, exactly. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.